Woo!
Let's go!
Welcome to the Unshakable live show. What else can I say? I don't really have anything prepared, but we're here to talk about nothing less than what does it mean to be a man and everything that falls within that broad subject. The purpose of this show really is just to create that space to build community and provide content in the support of men today in our modern world, in the craziness that we live in, right? And the struggle to find masculinity and meaning in today's life. So, PJ, Mr. Right Hand, go ahead and introduce yourself and take us away.
What's going on, guys? My name is PJ. I am Pete's right hand man. I work on a company called Reality Dreamers, where we try to manifest and create a safe community where we could understand and feel comfortable with discussing mental health and mental health awareness. And what ends up happening is what's success, and how to define success. So me and Pete are working together to capture an audience that are ready. So Pete, what I wanted to say to you is, when you first started out with Unshakable, like, how did you know this was it? This was your calling. 'Cause I feel like most men were just trying to find a job, be providers, whatever that means to women, right? But we don't ever feel that sensation of fulfillment.
Yeah, the catch, the trap of doing what you should do to be a good man, right? And it's not that there's nothing wrong, but it's lacking, right? Is the place to put it, right? It's not wrong, but it is lacking. And if that's how you live your life, you get to the end of life and it's not that exciting, right? It's not that fulfilling. This is not really about the excitement, but it is about the fulfillment, and excitement comes with that. As men, we crave adventure and meaning. So, how did I know
Yeah,
when I started Unshakable? I mean, though, I wish I had like a nice clean, little Google Maps like dot that shows this exactly in my timeline was when I knew. I just knew that there was something more, you know, and that's always been a driver for me, is that desire for more and the knowing that there's meant to be more and seeking what does that mean? What does that look like? Throughout my career doing things like cleaning out septic systems and standing in shit, literally, and but just always knowing that there was something more. There was a gift, essentially, that is like there's a gift to be shared, right? There's a sense of meaning, purpose, fulfillment. Passion is a beautiful word. Passion means willingness to suffer. So when you find what you're passionate about, you're really just finding what are you willing to suffer for. Because passion has very little to do with instant gratification. It has everything to do with what are you willing to ultimately take up your cross daily, right? As we're told
yeah,
in the scripture, take up your cross daily and follow after me. And that's where we find our sense of meaning is in purpose and calling. And your calling and your purpose is to share your gift with the world, whatever that looks like. Your world might be smaller or larger, right? Depending on kind of what level of stage you were called to. And you'll know that within yourself. A deep layer of this is if you go out looking for answers out here, you're not going to find them because the answers are in here. So that's the number one foundational piece that we really got to start with in this conversation of finding your purpose and your calling. It's already within you. It's a matter of unlocking it so that you can live it and be it. Because you're not human doing, we're a human being, right? So your being is your life.
yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. But I will have to say, as somebody that has always struggled in finding all these 9 to 5 jobs and hopping around, when Mitch introduced us, you were able to have structures, processes that made sense. It was simple, it was easy, and we did the work. We did the work as a group. I had a therapist trying to get me to do my own business for over 3 years, and what we knocked it out under a month and a half, and now we're starting this together to
Yeah.
see what we could conquer. So I have to say that, yeah, it's definitely within us, but having that foundation built for ready men is like a driving factor in building the safe community, in creating our reality and our dreams. And I can't wait to see what your empire is going to start to look like. It's okay.
We pause this broadcast for.
I mean, it is definitely for men that want to create a business, but anybody that's willing to listen and become 1% better than yesterday, right?
Oh hell yeah, that's what it's about. Because ultimately, right, it's a contemplation of legacy. What legacy are you going to leave? So I work mostly with entrepreneurial men because that's just who I resonate with. That's who I am. That's who I resonate with, right? It just fits perfectly. When you're in the entrepreneurial world, you you more quickly see the results of the changes that you make, right? You improve your productivity. What happens? You get things done faster. What happens when you get things done faster? You see results faster, right? If you're working in a corporation or even a smaller company with just overloaded with bureaucracy, you can be the A player and you're almost worse off. I had that experience working at a job where it felt like either I leave or I just have to just castrate myself when it comes to productivity and drive and motivation, ambition. All of it just has to go because I can't be here and be me. And that's a point of conflict and crisis, which is a beautiful thing if you ever find yourself in that moment, right? To stop and take stock of, well, where am I meant to be? Because if you know that you're sacrificing your soul to stay where you are, then there's something wrong. And what that ultimately is there's a sign there for you if you're willing to listen and be present to it. There's a sign there. That's your calling speaking to you, right? Because the word calling, it's not like you go choose it. It calls you. That's why we call it a calling. It's calling you. My calling is calling me. It's our job to listen.
So I love that point. What made you jump into the abyss of fear itself? Because if you're becoming an entrepreneur, I've seen so many people take the risk, but that risk, that you just lose the insurance, the steady paycheck for a hypothetical situation. But I will say, since getting to know you, it's not that it already exists. We just need to do the action steps. But what pushed you? I don't want to say motivation is the right word, but what got you to drive into that step, that big leap?
I love that. Dive into the abyss. Part of it was that I'd already taken the dive in other ways. So there was already a resilience built up, right? Taking the dive personally, taking that dive, you know, in the journey with depression, and going to dark places in my own soul and my own heart in that way already created a space of what do I have to fear? Because I'm just dealing with me at the end of the day. And once you realize that, it's a very freeing thing. As David kills Goliath, right? And then the Philistines, which is the army behind Goliath, they all flee. And so the rest of the story of David is what? David dealing with David. It's all that's left, right? The giant is dead, the army is gone, you're left with yourself. So that's why I'm passionate about this work. As entrepreneurship is really just a stepping stone into the realization that everything is about the internal work. Everything is about your internal state. And if you're not equipped to deal with yourself and heal yourself, you're not going to achieve the goals and the objectives that you set for yourself. If anything, they become crushing weight of self-condemnation, guilt, and shame. I try so hard and I still can't get it. I must be right. I must need more discipline and motivation. And if I just wake up earlier, what's wrong with me? And all this crap that we beat ourselves down with, right? I'm going to go do 75 hard again. And maybe that'll give me the breakthrough that I'm looking for. Once again, something external when the answer's within you.
I don't think, especially in our society, modern day men know how to listen to themselves, nor know how to express themselves. It's always constantly like, oh, if I show it an ounce of emotion, who's going to see the vulnerable side? Who's going to backstab me? Oh, my partner or crush is. I'm not masculine enough. I'm not manly enough. Like that's
Right.
part of the issue, right? Like I can't tell you how many times people made fun of me. Like, oh my god, why are you writing poetry? Like, because it's fun. It's art. It's my art that I'm going to show the world. Doesn't mean you have to enjoy it. But I kind of wish that we could start pivoting that notion that when we are by ourselves, can we create that safe space? How do we create that safe space
Mm.
instead of the judgments that echoes in the caves in our own mind
Yes.
constantly, constant.
It's the arena. The term safe space, I agree with. I agree with what I think you mean. I don't use it. I use the term arena. There's a clear delineation, right? You enter the arena, and that's really what it's really the coaching, right? The coaching is there to create an arena. I haven't told you that yet, but you've experienced it, right? It is very much to create the boundaries that it is a safe container to be very unsafe. That's the key, right? If all we're looking for is just a safe space, it's kind of like I need a big cuddly pillow that's totally soft and never going to hurt me. No, the arena is where you go to face yourself. And it's the most terrifying thing. And that's why when you were talking about, yeah, men have a hard time or just struggle with being present to themselves, what the real thing underneath it all is because it's scary as hell, right? What are you going to find?
Bunch of skeletons, mate. Bunch of skeletons.
Skeletons. And sometimes it's like, oh, I might find a monster. Yeah, you will find a monster and you might be scared of the monster, but you're also going to find a coward. What are you going to do with that? Right? You're also, here's the biggest catch though, is you're also going to find a wounded little boy who's crying out in pain, saying, I need help. Do you know how to sit with him? Or are you just going to go back to the old thing that we all know, which is just try to gag him? Shut up, kid. I'm trying to live. Gonna drink another beer and turn Netflix on. Tiger King will solve that.
I'm
You know what I
dead.
mean? And it doesn't, right? There is no escape because the little screaming boy is just escalation. You can't fight yourself. And that's the problem is so many people find themselves in and this is the problem, the danger of discipline for discipline's sake is you just end up in a escalation, right? Which is an arms race, you know? When you push things like it pushes back. It's jujitsu. If I go push, I'm asking you to push back. And even worse, if I go push, if you know anything, you're just going to armbar me because I probably stiffed up and gave you leverage. And that's the battle with our subconscious mind and the idea of self sabotage. But our being is not designed for sabotage. Your being, your mind is only designed to keep you safe, to keep you in survival, right? So when you can harness that, it'll work with you profoundly and it will elevate you to new highs. But if you're fighting against it, it will constantly tear you down. And that's the experience. And that's why it's so damn frustrating to try to sit with yourself. How the hell are you going to sit with yourself when you're spending all your time fighting yourself? And you feel like ultimately, like when you really pause and consider on this, it gets to the point where if I stop putting pressure, it's all going to fall apart. That's terrible. But there's also an addiction to that, I think, that we have to acknowledge as
Hmm.
men, because we all, as men, we have energy that needs to be applied to something. And this is another segue. But I mean, if you want to talk about like addiction and things like struggling with pornography, anything like that, it's like it's your own creative energy. As men, that is, that's just biology of our wiring is we're here to create, to procreate and create, right? To leave a legacy. Not there's a nurturing aspect, but when we're talking about that masculine energy is creative, it's exploratory, right? There's all these things to it. So if your energy is not directed the right way, you're going to struggle with your energy. That's a big part of the issue. um, so it's about harnessing and channeling that energy in the right way. And then your energy is actually tapped into the right thing that will rejuvenate you. But when we pour our energy into the wrong things, what does it do? It drains us. So same thing with the internal conflict. And if you're a fighter like I am, you become addicted to the fight. But if it's the wrong fight, it will consume you, right? So once again, that quote that I shared with you the other day, one of my favorites, make peace with yourself and heaven and earth will make peace with you.
Still
And I
working
got to
on
pause
that.
and give a big shout out to my man Esqual. Hey, brother, good to see you.
Oh, sweet. What's going on, buddy? High five for
Man,
that. It's just fascinating because the more that we get to talk and engage on our topics that we're going to try to show and change the world, how things align, the alignment and the flow when it is meant to be.
mm-hmm.
So when you're talking about 75 hard, I'm like, yeah, I did that. Did not work for me. You know, going to the gym because I start watching Pump and Iron. I'm like, oh, I gotta do this. This is it. This is gonna help me get to that next level for fulfillment. That if I work out, I can grow my muscles and I get all the girls that I want. That I'll start becoming successful. That this is gonna help discipline my mind. It did not. It did not. It made me feel good. It releases the dopamine. It releases that creative energy juice. But it was only a means to an end. It didn't help me in the career aspect that I was searching for to be creative. So when things started to make sense that, hey, this isn't for me, I found a new job. Hey, this still isn't for me. I'm in another sales market position and it's not my passion, but to be able to talk to others, to be able to relate, to be able to harness my skills in icebreakers, meeting strangers, connecting with strangers, understanding their pain. And I think this is where it comes full circle. All right, who are those little boys that are crying out for help? Are you actually asking for help? Are you asking the right people to help you? What have they done, right? Like, are they just victimizing themselves and repeating that pattern because they're comfortable with living that way? Or is it I'm reaching out for help, but my negative atomic thoughts plague me. I don't know how to get out. I want to be creative, but it doesn't make sense. I don't know how to make that first step. That fear is always a driving factor. So the fact that when you were talking about your depression, you're already in, I guess, rock bottom per se, right?
Yeah,
You crawled out. We could do it, but why not do it with other members, other brothers that are willing to show you, guide you?
100% lift you up, support you, right? And provide and share the worldview because that's key, right? Part of what you were just saying about the, what essentially it's a question: where do you identify, right? Are you identifying with the pain? Are you identifying with the mistakes that you make, the habits that you want to break? But if you identify with those habits, they become a part of you, and then how are you going to break it without breaking yourself, right? Because you falsely identified with what is not you is part of the issue, and that's part of the. It's a big critique of mine of the way that we approach mental health and a lot of just things in today's society is false corollary of identity. Oh, you did this, therefore you are.
Hmm.
I am, therefore I do. It's an important switch. It's a subtle switch. But when you learn that within yourself, oh, once I do this, I'll be, is the wrong way to be pursuing success. I am this, therefore I do. Everything you do flows from the state of being. When you shift your state of being, you shift your world, you shift your thoughts naturally. So the power of shifting your thinking cannot be understated, right? The autonomic, right, or the whatever that term is you just used, but the thoughts that are running in your brain, that is determining your life, your state of being. Those even have a root though, because sometimes we're like, man, how do I shift my thoughts? And if we're real about it too, sometimes we have pretty crazy freaking thoughts that are kind of terrifying, like, oh my God, was that really me? Your So I want to pause on that because I think it bears speaking to. Your mind is somewhat of a radio receiver. There are thoughts that pass through your mind, through your airspace, that are not yours. It's what you choose to identify with and attach to and engage with. That's what then begins to become a part of you, right?
Yeah.
Because on the neuroscience of it is that your brain is releasing chemicals and proteins in direct response to the quality of the thinking of your thoughts. So at a nanosecond level, brain is releasing proteins. Proteins go through the body and affect the expression of your genes. So you have untapped genetic potential that is waiting for you to shift your thinking, right? So when you pause and think about that, we say, oh, disease is genetic. Maybe it was the thinking that was genetic. My dad had heart disease. My granddad had heart disease. Maybe you should stop the shit thinking that's giving you heart disease, right? And the thinking leads to feeling, and the feeling leads to action, and the action leads to results. But there's something deeper than all of that, and that's the state of being. And that connects to identity. It's how do we identify ourselves? And then what thoughts do we identify with? Because once again, the infinite potential of crazy thoughts that go through your head on a day-to-day basis, minute to minute, right? Kind of scary sometimes when right? Like we've all had thoughts that we probably don't want to like necessarily publicly announce. You know what I mean? Um, but they're there. And so one of the best things you can do is just push it away. Do not engage. One of the biggest just pieces of gold I can give is just do not engage with what you don't want. Because if you engage with it, you're focusing on it and it'll
It
grow.
brews.
You're watering it. Yeah. You're feeding it energetically. You are feeding it.
It's funny you say that. When I was finishing up my first book a couple of years ago, and Edgar Allan Poe, Charles Bukowski, their works of art just magnificent, but at the same time, it was just manifesting dark, more depression, more suicidal behaviors, more addictions, more
Mm-hmm.
issues. And then I actually couldn't write without that victimization mindset for a while.
Mm.
So when my cousin told me to pivot, like, hey, like you could write better than this. What is this garbage? This is no. This error should be done with. And he was right. But I totally agree with you that in our bodies, when we have a simple thought, it does faster. That's why I really do believe the state of being is so important in order to that create your reality ASAP.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's we have that term pissed off.
What for being angry, pissed off?
Yeah, right.
Like,
I'm pissed off.
mhm.
It literally because anger is stored in your kidneys.
Okay, I did not
Stuff
know
from like
that.
it's all the Eastern practices all understood a much more holistic union of mind, body, and spirit, right? And so that's one of them, where your emotions aren't just kind of this thing that you feel and think, sort of. No, it's an actual part of your body. It's an actual part of your being. As Nikola Tesla says, everything is energy, frequency, and vibration. You can go all kinds of places with that, you know, and that can be one of my favorite things to observe is the conclusions that people jump to based on particular things. So, what conclusion am I going to now that I've called that out? My conclusion is simply that when you're thinking a thought, it shifts. A thought is a high frequency or high, right? It's fast. You can change your thinking right now, right? The classic example in NLP is if I say, don't think of a purple elephant, what are you thinking of now?
Purple elephant, hell yeah.
Stupid purple elephant that always invades our brain. Yeah, when we try not to. So that's a good example of trying to negate things is not very helpful too. So you just simply ignore that which you don't want, back to that, and focus on what you do. Transmute it. We've talked about that, the transmutation, right? Lead to gold. You don't want this, we'll stop trying to not want it. What do you want? And the reality is a lot of us walk through life with no clue of what we actually want. All right, I'm going off on tangents, as you know I do.
No, it's
Energy. I want to pause, just finish that loop. So the energy of your thought, it's like it goes down, in like geology, you see all the layers,
yeah.
and then they want to say stuff like, "Oh, this one's like 30 billion years old," and then a flood happens, and they're like, "Oh, turns out that can happen in like 2 days." Well, that kind of screws some stuff up. Anyway, but in strata, you see it's like at the surface, you got the softer stuff you can move around easily. And then you dig down far enough and you're going to hit bedrock, and you're going to need some heavy equipment to get through that, if anything. Right. So all that to say, just with the energy, you can change our thinking really quickly. Our feeling is a different
Are you talking about the subconscious feeling?
emotion.
Emotion, okay.
Just simply thoughts, emotion. Emotion is another layer down. If we were talking about dialing on frequencies, it goes slower. Thought is right, instant. Feeling is a little slower behind thought, but then it goes into your body, becomes real. And so that's the thing also back in scripture, God created the world speaking. He spoke it into existence. So it's another key thing of interest and point that just weaves through all of this is the power of our thoughts and our words. And we talked a bit about this, that idea that your words are when you're actually giving breath to your thought. So you are incarnating that concept.
So let me take it a step further. So I've always had in my mind that from the dawn of time, energy can never be created or destroyed. Why I want to dig into that is because our soul is energy, and that cannot be created or destroyed, theoretically. So we are all beings that are meant to exist. We're supposed to exist, and maybe from the higher power, at this moment as is. So if our thoughts is instant and energy cannot be created or destroyed, does that mean our destiny is already transpired? It's already a transcript of how we're supposed to find it. But human beings have free will. The reason why I want to dig this into this is because men need to tap into their potential. Why aren't we
Yes.
tapping into this potential? What is another factor other than fear that's stopping us?
All right. Good question. So some of that it goes into the realm of the unanswerable. You
Mm.
know, from it just we can theorize, and then but I'll say this: I believe that we're all born with a calling. We come into this world and we have a calling. We have a potential, and it is that question of free will, higher power, for me, God, right? I believe God has created us with our gifts, with our talents, with a blueprint, as it were, a foreshadowing of what we are potential, like our potential, which I think of as the calling, right? It's the fulfillment. And I love all these words. They have so much layer and meaning, right? We talk about, I want fulfillment in life. Well, what is fulfillment? If not the fulfillment of the potential, the gifts, like seeds that lay planted within you, waiting for the right circumstances to grow and bloom and come to fruition, right? And some seeds need water and some seeds need fire.
Why fire? I love that. Okay.
Yeah, some seeds only germinate after being burned. So like after a forest fire, there's some seeds that must survive fire, go through fire. There are some seeds like morning glories will not bloom, which we call a weed, right? But they don't bloom, they don't grow flowers unless they're under stress. So dry, unfertilized soil is where they bloom and grow flowers. If you fertilize their soil and give them lots of water, they just grow leaves, no flowers. So there's that place of hardship, which is where I can appreciate ideas like the 75 hard. It's like, okay, it's good for men to be under pressure, but there's just so much nuance and context that needs to be there to find what is actually you. Because otherwise you're just following somebody else's dogmatic process, and that is not going to reveal you to you. You're just going to
Yep.
try to be like somebody else because they said I should do this. They said this is a way to be a big tough man, so I'm going to go do this so I can be a big tough man. Why are you doing it? Is the first question. If you're doing it because you want to feel tougher or bigger and badder than somebody else, you have no confidence because you're building on a foundation of sand. Because somebody will come along who is always bigger, badder, and tougher than you if that's how you're rating your value, which is a problem with the way that we've rated the value of masculinity and manhood. It just is, simply put. Like there's an issue with the way that we've created, contained, or determined the value of men. And that's why a lot of men find themselves stuck in the vacuum of, I need to provide and I got to do what I should do. I'll do all the right things and get to the end of life and what? Hope I have enough retirement? Hope the grandkids want to spend time with me? Like, with what? The husk of a man who hasn't lived, and so he has no life within him? Right? So that's the place of potential. Have you really come under the fire that's needed to draw out the potential that has not been, right? There's that saying, strong men create good times create weak men create hard times create strong men. So there's a place of going through the right hardship, but there's also a balance of sufficient to the day are the evils thereof. So if you just go looking for hardship for the sake of hardship, well, then you're in danger of becoming a sadist or a masochist, right? Masochist is the self-inflicted one. There's no virtue in that. So where am I going with all this? Potential, calling, right? Because your question was, well, there's this interesting dynamic and nuance between free will and also this idea of, is it kind of predestined or foreshadowed? I believe it's foreshadowed. There is no predestination. Definitely not a Calvinist. All you Calvinists out there,
Peace out.
totally disagree. Yeah, totally disagree. And I'm not going to have that conversation on this call, but I know that can be an interesting rabbit hole. There is no predestination. We do have free will. We have the ability to choose, and we are rewarded for that choice. But there's also that it comes with challenge. It does not come easily. And so if you just follow the easy path, you get the rewards of that easy path, which is, well, ultimately you don't have self-esteem. If we're just flat out, bottom line, well, you can have an easy life. All you have to pay for that is self-esteem, right?
Not if I'm
Everything
crazy.
comes at a price. What do you want? So we come back to that. What do you want out of life? Are you clear on that? Have you really sat down and looked at it, or are you just acting in like automatic response? Go here, do this, and our culture is built around that now. Our education system is designed to create, well, it comes from a Prussian model, designed, I think, in the 1800s, to create, that's specifically designed to produce good soldiers and miners. Both of those are professions where you do not think, you just follow orders. Go in this hole and dig. Yes, sir. What are we digging for? Shut up. Why are we digging? Right? No room for
Yeah.
that. No room
It,
for the deeper thinking. And look, it, there's nothing wrong with soldiers or miners if that's your calling, right? It's about being aligned. And that was another thing you spoke to, which I want to dig into more, is that state of flow. State of flow is much different than just being an automatic responder, right? They're two very separate things. But a flow state is part of that is the goal, I believe, because that is a state of peace, which is what every man is seeking ultimately. We all seek peace, but the path to peace is found through war.
It's not pretty, mate. Tell you that much. Not pretty to get there.
No.
But it's just super interesting how things make sense. How one thing leads to another, how connections are built, how networking is.
Networking. Getting kinky here.
Well, think about it. I'm from New York. You're in Colorado.
Oh, okay.
You know what I
I'm
mean?
talking about
Like,
networking. What we're talking about.
yeah.
Yeah.
But like, there's so many people out there, so many different gifts and callings, and so many people that just don't have that opportunity. That maybe they haven't met that person yet,
Mm.
or they haven't got that textbook. Whatever is going to help them unlock that gift. And it's a disservice for us to not serve those that seek.
Absolutely.
Listen,
I think it's if you're not sharing your gift with the world, you are robbing the world of your gift.
this is what we got to do. This is what we got to barge into the front gates. Not like, what you would call it, Operation Trojan. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be no guy. This is all about honesty. I don't know, up front, discussing, no problem asking questions where we came from, what we did and had to do to get here, but also being in a state of being and manifesting the next step to see the top of the hill.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what men need to understand. It's not like, oh, instant gratification. Oh, how I'm going to go doom scroll and I'm going to find out this quick answer. Oh, I could do this and make a lot of money. I get the certification and I'll be happy. No, no clickbaits here. It's a process. Let's bleed together. Let's sweat together.
That's it.
Let's cry together.
It all takes work.
I just wish people knew that. Like, shit.
Well, I think sometimes too, it's being. I mean, tell me if this resonates for you. Like just being in that state of, okay, I want more, but how? I'm willing to work, but what? Right? Is that part of your journey? Because it was absolutely part of mine.
Oh no, 100% was. Just like telling people, oh, I want to do this. I want to be this podcaster. I'm going to be awesome. Oh, yeah, I'm going to talk about mental health and I'm going to save people. And I was just, I'm not going to lie, just having a beer. Just like, I'm going to do this. It's going to be fantastic. But no action steps. It was all just gurgitating thought, just thought. And now it's more of a streamlined process, just understanding myself, different topics I want to discuss, and taking the time to do an outline, do a little bit of research about it, and my own story.
Mm-hmm.
Men need somebody authentic, not this fake stuff we see on media in Hollywood. Let's not even get into Hollywood as how satanic that is. That's another rabbit hole, right? But creating a narrative where they could relate to the pain. That, oh, hey, like, I was suicidal for years. I didn't know how to get out of it. My depression was, a constant struggle. And just having anxiety, like, oh my God, I'm going to try this thing. What's going to happen? Should I just quit my job and do this full time? I can't wait to do that. That's the state of being. Sorry, Cambria. But it's the fulfillment process of starting this journey, making the podcast, making it work, having the structure, having the support of a mentor, and almost brotherly bonding, brotherhood, I would say, and doing it now together. Like that's pretty amazing. I feel like more people need to hear these kind of stories that hey, it's okay to feel pain, but don't let that pain just soak up and become your existence. Don't let that thought like, oh, it's just I'm just gonna talk. I'm just gonna talk. It's gonna happen. All right, bet. What are your action steps? What are you working on? What are you thinking about? What are you writing in to discover you? What are your 7 reasons why this is your purpose?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
You can't get stuck in the pain, right? It's okay to be in pain. That's the first. I think there's layers to this message. The first layer is, yeah, it's okay to be in pain, right? But if we stop there, well, then what? Well, then it's just mental health awareness. And unapologetically, I think that's one of the worst things. I'm not here to be aware. I'm here to heal and grow, right? And there is a path to healing and growth. But if we just get stuck in this place of like, I'm just gonna be aware of the pain. What are you gonna do to solve the pain? Because in in the only path to healing is through the pain. So the pain is actually something beautiful. The pain is good. It's not just okay to be in pain. The next level of that is good,
Yeah. The
right? This is
sad.
the pain of awakening. It's the pain of growth. Just like when you go to the gym, what happens when you have a good workout? Your muscles are in pain. Why? Because you just tore them so that they can rebuild stronger. Like a bone that's been broken, where it heals is stronger than the rest of the bone around it. We have so much in our natural world, in our own physiology that reflects this truth to us that we lose sight of so often. Pain is actually healthy. It's there as a symptom, is there to guide you to the root so that you can heal. But you have to be present to it. So awareness is a beautiful thing, but not to stay there, right? We don't stop in the pain, and we definitely do not identify with the pain. Depression is not my identity. It is something that I've struggled with deeply, and it is something that at times peeks back out and says, "Oh, hey, you thought I was gone, but I'm here to give you a big wet hug today, and you're gonna kind of like it in a certain way, and that's gonna be right." And it's like, oh, that's weird. There's part, right? There's a comfort in this terrible discomfort, and the only way, but again, the freedom is only found by real, like, actual honest and ruthless self-evaluation and honesty. Because we just try to say, I'm not feeling depressed, I'm feeling fine, which is another kind of like knee-jerk reaction. I'm fine. No, well, great. You're fine right until you snap, right? Or on the other side is to get too lost in just identifying with the thing. So
Well said, brother. So why do you think we're conditioned? I wonder why you said that.
Esqual,
It's it, Esqual, yeah.
share it. We're conditioned to run away from pain and challenges, but those are the only way to grow. Esqual. Yeah, man. Yeah, where's the conditioning comes from? I mean,
That's,
you look at, we have this sense that, I mean, it is like on an endemic kind of systemic, like societal level, there's almost this fear of like, if it's painful, it's wrong. You know, there's emotional resilience or something like that is the term being given to something that they're teaching in some elementary schools. It's total bullshit. Um, they basically tell kids if the line that they feed kids is, I'm struggling, I need help. Like, I'm struggling, I can't do this, can you help me? Nothing wrong with reaching out for help, but struggle is how you grow, right? If you're always doing, so but if if we're teaching that, what we're teaching is I need a babysitter, I need a nanny, I need somebody to pick me up and carry me up the stairs because I never learned how to freaking walk. You watched have you watched a kid learn how to walk?
No, I haven't had that opportunity
Dude, you
yet.
gotta fight for it. You gotta fight for it. That's the thing. So what do you want? Comes back to that. What do you actually want out of life? Well, are you willing to fight for it? And thankfully, you don't have to go fight somebody else. But you do have to fight that old conditioning within yourself. And if you're giving me that look because you're like, yeah, there's going to be, yeah, I know. We've both had people come up out of the woodwork that want to tear you back. But the only way that those people, the haters, the critics, the doubters in your life have any influence or authority over you is if you allow them. And the only way that we allow them is that we're still living in the old state, right? What is referred to as the old man. The old man must die, right? There's again, in scripture, Jesus says you cannot put new wine into old wineskins. We must become renewed in your thinking, renewed in your mind. There's so much there that's all guiding us towards this truth. Esquel, thanks for sharing this. I'm going to pop it back down. But yeah, thank you for engaging. And really, like anybody watching this, the part of the beauty of this is we're here to be interactive with you too. So, if you've got thoughts, if you've got questions, comments, throw them in. Like we're here to engage with that and to dig in and really, have that interactive experience where you can guide us to the topics that you want discussed here too, right? I know for my part, I'm so reactive. That's why I'm excited to be part of, why I'm excited to be doing this here with PJ is just because we can have such greater conversations and cover so much more in this conversational format than just sitting here, for me, definitely just sitting here, just trying to talk to myself. So also that's open to all of you here with us watching as well. Join us in the comments. You are most welcome. So,
or email, shoot them
okay.
over so we can talk about it in the next show.
What's the email?
Damn, bro. You could use Patrick Lydon, LYDON 72 at Gmail, and I'll shoot him over a Pete, and we'll have it on our next live show number 2.
All right, we got to create an email for the show that can just be dedicated to that. Mm-hmm. But, yeah. All right. So yeah, the conditioning comes with a sense of. It's also a conditioning of if it hurts, it must be bad. Right? If it hurts, it must be wrong.
So I don't know about that anymore. I'm going to challenge you on that because I feel that, especially we're very close in age, but it's almost as if kids, millennials, are I want something to be wrong because I want to be spoon fed. I've seen so many people that are growing up and they don't read. They got spark notes. They're doing other things where they have their parents doing their homework, or my dad got me this job because he's in this thing. There's no real.
You know what I just saw? Is you can have an interactive AI Jesus to chat with. Don't even pray for yourself anymore. Good God. It's getting out of hand. I mean, the whole AI conversation is a whole nother one. I use AI, but I really, some of the usages are it's wrong. But it's always the problem with tools. You have great resources available to you. And here today, right? Look at where we are today, right? So productivity is always is a hot topic. How do you get more done in less time? Let's just pause and look at, first of all, in our time today, like in this, right, in 2023, but also just in this whole, since 2000, productivity has spiked exponentially. And if you're just looking at like salaries and all that, those have not, like the productivity has gone like this and salaries are just like, meh, you know what I mean? Oh, mortgages though. Dude, why do we get strap ourselves down with a nightmare? Excuse me, but that's socially accepted as responsible. Which comes back to this whole idea of do the right thing, do what you should, which is strap yourself up with what society tells you. It's time to think for yourself, right? If a mortgage isn't right for you, don't do it. Do not succumb to the societal peer pressure, which is just a form of brainwashing,
Yes.
right? And you're not going to be the only way to be free from peer pressure and societal brainwashing and conditioning. And Esqual, thank you. Is just to learn to connect with your own inner knowing, because the answers are already there within you. And if you don't know how to connect with your inner knowing, you are susceptible to be just blown around like a reed in the wind, this way and that, because you have no strength within you. You're shakeable.
Ooh, fire there, fire, buddy. And for those that are trying to find out different solutions on how to develop your own opinions and mindset, I would suggest being in nature. Shut off your phone. Be alone in your thoughts. I know that's like super scary, right? It's nerve wracking to some because I feel like we are constantly trying to get stimulated, constantly just craving that dopamine effect. But just take off your shoes, take off your socks, get grounded with nature, get grounded in your thoughts and dissect them.
Hmm.
Get a clear head. It will just come. And if it doesn't come right away, that's cool. At least you're thinking of an action step. You're thinking for yourself. You're not getting
Right.
brainwashed. And then you come here, discuss it,
Yes.
talk about it with us. Hey, I'm stuck. I'm interested in XYZ because I want to be this kind of a man. All right, bet. Let's help guide you. We're not going to judge you.
That's it. That's it. That's my foundation of all coaching. All the work that I do comes back to that idea of the unlocking, right? I believe that it's just completely toxic when what coaches, and I know them, that approach this idea of like, oh, I'm a coach because I'm great and I'm going to help people be more like me so they can be great too. Well, that's narcissistic, egotistical, and toxic, because now you're imposing your idea onto others. You're trying to make others in your own image, right? Instead of unlocking the true image, which is theirs and theirs alone. And that is sacred. Right? If we look at, to wax a little, yes, theological here, but I just think I'm just fascinated by no one respects our free will more than God.
Amen.
Salesmen do not.
Oh, oh,
Oh no, look, we're
oh.
both salesmen here. And sales is a part of my platform, right? Teaching ethical, respectful sales, because it's the same thing as coaching and it's the same as leadership. If you want to be a great leader, it's all about lifting others up. And that means allowing them, empowering them, and supporting them in being the best version of themselves. And it's the same as fatherhood. And so that's why it all links back to everything that we're talking about here as how do you become a better man? First, you start with how do you be a better you? And what does a real you look like? And if you're still trying to be like someone else, you are not being yourself. And if you're not being yourself, you are robbing the world of the gift that is you.
Pause.
Specifically, let's make the world, all right, pause it
Hold
for
on
you.
a second. Hold on a second, mate. I love that you brought that up. Why can't we emulate our role models in order to discover ourselves? You
Absolutely.
know?
Absolutely.
And,
No, that's the reason for role models. But a healthy role model is going to kind of always give you a
oh.
level of pushback and not allow you to idolize them. There's emulation and there's idolization, right? And that's a difficult line. It's difficult on both ends. And that's why it takes a lot of responsibility to walk that path as a role model or just as a coach, right? That's why I just believe if you're a coach, you're a leader, wherever you are, if you're in a position of responsibility, which guess what? 99.9% of you are, right? Anybody listening? Like you have some responsibility. You are influencing someone in your life. You need accountability because you need someone that can be a real, true, honest mirror to you, who you can share what's going on and hear the unfiltered truth from them in love. And again, that's that safe space, which is the arena, right? It is unsafe. You are going to be punched in the teeth, but it's only for your own well-being. So that because otherwise you're just going to go do a bunch of damage. How many of us have worked for a toxic boss, right? You know, and we're like, I can't stand this boss. Well, then go be an entrepreneur, and then you're going to realize, oh shit, now I'm the boss.
You gotta figure it out. You gotta
You
make an
got it.
action.
You're right. So then it's on you to realize. And the same thing. How many of you have had issues with your dad? Right? How many of you have been teenagers and you're like, I hate my dad. I never want to be anything like him. And then you find yourself repeating like these little odd like personality quirks that you hate. And then you're doing the same thing and you realize, oh my gosh,
I'm my father.
I'm my
No,
father,
no,
right?
no.
And you're not. But you carry his genetics and you carry the imprinting and you carry the subconscious patterns of thinking, all of it. But you have the opportunity to become more. And you have the opportunity to fulfill what he was lacking, because so many of us today, we have dads, we do not have fathers. That's an epidemic that we face in our Western culture. We have a lot of dads, we don't have many. We have so few fathers. And that's why fatherhood is really the platform for me more than anything. It's about becoming a great man, is really about stepping into fatherhood, because that's where you see the fulfillment of the masculine, like the power, the drive, the strength. I want to go lift weights. I want to be strong. I want to be attractive. I want to go hunt. I want to go challenge. I want to grow. Why? When you find the meaning for that in fatherhood, husbandhood, right? Being a husband, yes, absolutely. But being in fatherhood, all of a sudden now, you're there to uplift and to support and to nurture and guide your next generation, which is directly your legacy. And your children, will reflect back to you without filter exactly what kind of father you are.
So,
Right?
I have a question. I
All
know
right.
this might be a little personal. You got two little ones, right? Do you see little quirks, little personalities of you already?
Absolutely. Both of my kids are incredibly hard-headed and stubborn. And my daughter is probably the most similar to me personality-wise. And there's some times where we really knock heads, and then afterwards I realize, well, it's because she's being so much like me.
That's amazing.
She just, in her head, she knows exactly what she's out to go accomplish at 6 years old, and she's like, I'm just going to go do it. Why would I need to tell anybody? I'm capable. I'm competent. I'm just going to go do it. And I'm going, what are you doing? Hey, talk to me. Communicate. What are you doing before you just go over there, right? And then it becomes this conflict. It just comes down to, first of all, she's just reflecting my own tendency, and that's exactly how I operate now. I don't communicate very well when I'm going to go do something. I'm just going to go do it. And I don't want anybody getting in my way. And she does the same thing. And I'm getting in her way. So I'm breaching in her what I hate being breached in myself. Somebody gets in my way, it's like, you're asking for a fight.
Back to the arena.
Back to the arena, right? What is going on? Just let me operate. Just let me do it. That's how just let me do this. Don't question me in the middle of the process. Unless there's really something actually wrong, right? Unless it's putting somebody else at risk. But if I'm just creating something or building something or working on something, just let me finish it, because I usually have my own route that's different than how everybody else does it. That's just how I operate. I'm creative. And she does the same thing. And so there you go. Live example of just,
She
all
got
right,
little
when I need to
notepads too.
pause. What's that?
She got little notepads too.
She
Soon.
does.
I love that. I love that.
She does.
So the reason why I bring this up, guys, is most men struggle in four different areas, which we're going to call pillars. It's going to be family, interpersonal relationship, so that includes your wife, your partner, your girlfriend, etc. Yourself, which we all neglect. I'm sure you're doing this, and even though you are creating your reality, you're really doing it for the kids also, right?
Say that again.
I'm saying even though you're creating your own reality with your business and your brand and being a coach, you're doing it to fulfill your purpose. But at
Hmm.
the end of the day, it is for your children,
Oh yeah.
so they don't have to struggle, go through those hardships that you have gone through, right?
My ceiling will be their foundation.
Mm.
Comes back to one of the tangents I didn't finish earlier, which is just breaking the bonds, breaking the chains of generational trauma, right? And we see that directly in our families. That's where I was going at with how many times we said, "Oh, I hate my dad. I never want to be anything like him," and then you end up seeing that you're like him. You can break it. You don't have to end up being all the same traits. You're gonna have similarities. There's similarities between me and my dad. But there's so many things that I've identified and I've broken because I will not pass that on to my children. It ends with me or I'll die trying. And that's the place to stand. That's the place to stand, I think, as men, because otherwise you never have any peace. Because otherwise you're the victim. You're the victim of your generational trauma or the boss trauma. I mean, like that's another example of it. But it comes back to and it relates to fatherhood. Being a boss, being a leader, is is a form of fatherhood. Fatherhood is like the pinnacle of all leadership and kinghood. So we could say kinghood. To step into that kinghood energy, right, is to be about nurturing and uplifting those around us. And we need to talk about the four masculine energy archetypes. We can bring that to here sometime, not quite today. We'll just leave that as a little teaser, you know how
There you
that goes.
go.
Um, but the kinghood energy, the wise king, as the pinnacle of healthy as the healthy masculine archetype, the archetypal energy, right? As a role model at a meta level for all of us to aspire to without idolizing once again, because that, so yeah, so many different tangents now that I'm realizing that we kind of opened up, and I want to get back to what you were saying about the four pillars. But to wrap up, right, wherever it is we find ourselves, we have an opportunity to break the chains so that they end with us. Because if they don't end with me, I pass them on to my children. That makes, right, that's not going to happen.
But you're aware and you already know, hey, I'm not going to be this way. I'm going to make sure I don't cause these actions. And
Right.
you're going to stop yourself. Or what I've noticed, like for my own dad, when he does something out of character or he's acting like his father before him, he's like, hey, stop. I'm sorry.
Mm.
He stops the process, he reflects, and we have to do that too. Just reflecting on our actions, reflecting that, hey, we are enough. Just because people are putting that judgment, the haters, the trolls, or women that we're talking to, etc., or bosses, be our own person. Back to the four pillars that I want to discuss in manhood. It is ourselves, number one, our partners, whoever that may be, our family, who children, put that way. And the last one is your grandparents, your cousins. I guess what like outer nuclear family you want to call it,
Extended family,
that standing family. You know,
something like that. Yeah. Okay.
I bring those to you because I feel like one, we have to define ourselves. Number one, and the cool thing about ourselves is we can evolve, we can transmutate, but you can only do that through, now that I know, fire in order to grow, or water. How are we doing that? Are we doing it through healthy mechanisms, not through addictions, not through atomic negative thoughts? And because once we figure out how to evolve and better ourselves, become 1% better ourselves than yesterday, it'll affect our partners' lives. Are you communicating comprehension. I can't tell you how many guys that I know that got married and on their way to divorce. Why? What was missing? Were you not focused on them, or were you just yesing them to death? I think that generational trauma is amazing because I don't think a lot of people discuss that enough, that we're able to break that bond. So, if you don't mind, what ways are you breaking that? It's just, hey, I know this action bothered me, so hey, I'm not gonna do it. That's what my dad did. He didn't drink after he had us.
Mm,
I think by like 3 years old, he just dropped it because he didn't want us to see what an alcoholic looked like.
mm,
I mean,
that's
so I
powerful.
thought,
Yeah. Yeah, and I love what it just speaks volumes of him that he's willing to pause and recognize that he's wrong. That takes strength and courage. And that comes back to vulnerability. Vulnerability is to recognize when you are weak so that you can become strong. And there's this really interesting nuance there. When you just try to be strong, you will find yourself very weak because you're never acknowledging the ways in which you need to grow. Um, John Wick 4, great movie.
I do
Those
want to
who
watch
cling
that.
to life will die, but those who cling to death live. Something like that is a quote there that I just think is fantastic. And true. It's like when we're obsessed with being strong, we end up weak. But when we take stock of where we are weak, we become strong. Because strength is something greater than ourselves, right? That's the whole idea of inspiration, which is where you find your calling and your purpose. Once again, in Scripture, it says, "My strength is made purpose perfect in weakness," right? Because weakness is where we actually make space for the divine, for God to act through us, because we recognize that we are inadequate in and of ourselves, because we are a vessel. That's the beauty of it. We get to, and that's fulfillment and passion and purpose is engaging full, and we could say flow state ultimately, is it being in that state of flow where we are flowing as a vessel with the divine inspiration and gift, right? We are being utilized and being at our highest possible state and calling, right? But that only happens with a place of humility, which is the acceptance that it is greater than just me, right? There's something greater um, than just me and my own efforts. If it was just me and my own efforts, nothing great happens. It rots and festers. Another perspective is look at nature. Everything is either growing or it's dying.
Yeah.
And not really dying, it's dead and now it's decaying. So for us, it's like it's a practice. Your question of like, how am I breaking the bonds? Another aspect of that is, so first of all, definitely take stock, similar to what your dad did. Like look at, okay, what are the things that were messed up that I know I'm not going to repeat that. I'm not going to do that to my kids, right? I'm not going to shame them. I'm not going to punish them because I felt because of my insecurity, cowardice, all these things, right? And then to go another layer and recognize, because again, it's like there's so much, what you resist persists, Carl Jung says. So this is where it has to come to another level, and this is the place of maturity for men as warriors and fighters, which is one of the masculine archetypes, the warrior, which we all have within us, that desire for challenge, because it's within a challenge that we find ourselves in a new place, right? If you look at it, if you don't challenge your limits, why do you, right? That's part of going to the gym. If you don't challenge your limits define you. Think about it. Any power lifter, how do they define them? Well, they define themselves by their limits, which is their PR. What's the max weight that they can lift? That's their limit that they are working to break through. So there's that desire of the warrior within all of us, which is healthy when harnessed properly. All of our energy is like that. it all has the healthy pinnacle, and then it has the shadow, which is that way that we misappropriate our own God-given gifts, powers, and energy and use them for destructive or self-destructive purposes, right?
Or manipulative purposes. Because I've
Yes.
noted a lot of people, they're like, oh, I'm holistic. I believe in the third eye. I'm like, okay, cool. Why are you bringing that up? Are you trying to do something onto me for your own gain? So, interesting
Totally.
concept.
Yeah, no, totally. And lost my train of thought.
We were talking about the warrior harnessing its powers in order to break the limits, and what ends up
Yes,
happening is the shadow. You were going into a
the
tangent with
shadow,
that.
because it was coming back to the place of, okay, not remaining just simply in the struggle, because we can struggle against our generational baggage, but to transcend it is a different work. Because if you just fight it, that becomes what defines you. The thing itself is what you begin to become. So that's where you have to break away from it and redefine yourself in a new way, right? And part of that is actually healing your own genetic potential at a, like, to bring kind of a scientific level to it, right? I mean, there's all these different threads to all of this that we're talking about. There's the spiritual, there's the metaphysical, there's the scientific. To me, it's all one and the same. It all weaves together because it's all dealing with really just how do we heal ourselves so that we can be who we're meant to be and really have authentic and real relationships with ourselves, with others, and with God, right? Because you're not going to have good relationships in any of those places if you can't even connect with yourself, right? So a lot of times this divorce is happening. Why? Because maybe the woman feels like, well, who am I even married to? Because the guy doesn't even know who he is.
How they fell in love
As
in the first place.
right, well, maybe it wasn't. I don't know, right? There's a lot of reasons why we make decisions in the moment when we're caught up in the initial, flood of the emotions, and part of it's just attraction, and that comes with many levels. I would say superficial, but that gives it a sense of like there's something wrong. There's nothing wrong with with the physical attraction, but there needs to be so much more to it. And that's where, once again, it's mind, body, spirit. As we develop ourselves holistically, and mature holistically, right? Because we all mature physically, inevitably. We're pretty,
Decaying.
yeah, yeah. But um, I know it's a strange pinnacle that happens, and then we're all decaying at some level. But um, intellectually, we do a pretty decent job of maturing, but emotionally, right?
Hmm.
That comes back to the screaming little boy inside. That's the emotional self, which is the unconscious. Rationally, we can be very sophisticated, but your unconscious mind is what's just gonna, hamstring you on your way to success. And that's why so many struggle with this idea of self-sabotage, limiting beliefs, all this kind of garbage, which, once again, we're not wired for that. All right, so so it's taking stock. How to break the bonds is really to take stock. What is it, first of all? And then you have this opportunity when you're doing that to realize, that you are healing. By healing generational trauma, you're also activating genetic potential that has not been tapped into.
Okay.
Okay? So that's really cool, just from that perspective, at least to me. But I'm a nerd. Um,
Nothing wrong with
so,
that, brother.
and then to look at, this is what has defined the story of the past. What is the new story? And this is the critical moment, because now your new story can just be man fights against trauma, right? Man fights his whole life, trying not to be the dad his dad was. Well,
Hmm.
my dad had that, and it didn't go well for him because he didn't set a new anchor. He didn't heal the identity. He didn't heal the trauma. Just fought against. Oh, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to do that. But what are you going to do? And if that struggle is what defines you, it can
Manifest
overcome
it.
you. Exactly. Because now it comes back to that place of state and identity. That's the anchor point from which all flows. Because you are the creative force of your life. You are the prime mover of your own life. Right? And for those of us, myself included, who believe in God and might think that that sounds a little like almost sacrilegious, or what's the term when you're like, like against God. It's not. It's because that's your own God-given ability that we underestimate, misjudge, and abuse, and then turn around and blame God. And I think that there's something very wrong with that. And so that's a whole other place of take ownership of where you're being a victim. All of us every day. Do not victimize yourself and blame God, which is exactly what Adam and Eve do in the garden. Adam blames Eve, and then Eve blames the serpent. And you know what? All of them say, "Oh, it's the woman thou gavest me." So he's not really blaming Eve, he's blaming God. You gave me this woman, and she tempted me to bite this apple. I mean, what's the big deal? I just took a bite out of an apple. I mean, you gave me the woman anyway. And then Eve was like, well, it's the serpent that you put in the garden with the tree that you put in the garden, so it's kind of your fault. Nobody's taking ownership for their own actions, and so they're cast out of paradise. And we all find ourselves in that eternal, right? That's the mystical significance of the scripture, is that it is all of our story. Each and every one of us has that, walking that story out and finding that as a truth of our own experience. How and where are we breaking the covenant, right? Which is that ideal, which is really like breaking with our own potential and calling, stepping out of that chain, out of that stream, and then saying, oh, well, it's not my fault. It's not my fault I did this, but there's no freedom in that. That's bondage. That's slavery. So we have to take ownership. There's freedom in ownership. And then rewrite the story. Because we all find ourselves, so state, identity, those can be hard to grapple with sometimes, but when you rewrite the story, because the story is what you tell, and then you tell the story, and then the story tells you. Right? So rewrite your story. What is your new family lineage? What is that legacy? What is that you're going to, who is the father? Like, how are your kids going to remember you? If you really want to get serious with it, visualize yourself on your deathbed. Because we all think, oh, got all the time in the world. What if you don't? Put yourself there now and start to consider, what do you want? How do you want to be remembered? By those 4 pillars that you brought up. How do you want those 4 pillars remembering? What do you want your spouse saying about you? What do you want your kids saying about you? Those are the most important ones to me. And then and honestly, like, here's a place where it might be a little unpopular, but for me, it's like my extended family has shifted. And it's no longer blood. It's a deeper connection. Right? It's that brotherhood that you talked about earlier. That's the family to me. It's not just like any of my family happens to listen to this. I love you guys too, and we're always connected. But what I found is just there's such deeper connections, and just being obsessed with family connections is part of the toxicity that plagues my family. Is that they idolize the family legacy, and they're not willing to take actual real stock of, no, this person made this mistake and it had this impact and it was bad. What they did was wrong. I forgive them, yes. I live at peace because I forgive them. But forgiveness is only found with honesty, which is the honesty of, okay, what you did hurt me. It was wrong. I forgive you. That's real forgiveness. But if you just live in this little fantasy of like, oh, it's okay, that's not forgiveness. And if
Not
you
over
live in
it.
that, you'll repeat it. That's the deadly danger of it. Did I answer any questions, or did I just riff? I don't know.
Both. It was kind of perfect because it's just what I love about every time we have a discussion, and just even a simple phone call. It's always a full circle back.
Mm.
Everything has a connection. I feel like your mind's almost like a spider web. Everything makes sense. It's all connected some way, shape, or form.
Hmm.
But I think with the four pillars, maybe we should take out extended family and let's put friendships. Friendships are labeled as some kind of, I don't want to say family because I feel like it's a deeper bond than that. Like my best friend, we talk every day. And it'd be like the stupidest thing, and we check in on each other. We check on each other's mental health, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just like this guy knows me like the back of his hand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we finish each other's sentences. I had a couple of my ex girlfriends be like, "Are you guys gay? Are you in a relationship with him?" And I'm like, "No, we just understand each other at such a high frequency level.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could sense when something's wrong. I would call and I'm like, "Hey, you good? We're not blood."
Mm-hmm.
That's the coolest thing that blows my mind. Like Gabe, if you're hearing this, I love you, brother. He would give it the shirt off his back. Like he's just that kind of guy. Like he's always there, always there. But I've been telling him this for a while. When are you going to be there for yourself? So a lot of the guys I know, they're lacking in anywhere from 2 or 3 areas of these pillars.
Yes.
Most of them are neglecting themselves and their partners. Their children is a different story. Like I seen some dads that I'm like, hey, you're a shitty person, but you're a great dad, or excuse me, great father. Let's put that coin term right. And I'm shook. I'm like, what? I seen how you interact with me and your boss and your coworkers and your friends, but your daughter, that is your
Mm.
world, and it's just mind blowing. Just it's sweet, endearing, but then they're not focusing on any other pillars. And then I hear them complain and they talk, and I'm like, hey man, like, you got some work to do. You gotta do some soul searching, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's being aware. All right, hey, I have to work on this. Even if somebody tells you it's not a bad thing, how they tell you though, there's a difference between positive criticism and being accusatory. Also, cutting people out. I think that needs to be more of a norm. If something doesn't align with your values, why are you putting somebody in your life? Doesn't
100%.
doesn't need to fit in that. And I think of with men that I've known, I had a lot of fraternity brothers. They were just doing things for the sake of it. Hey, I'm bored, or I don't understand myself, so I'm going to do drugs. I'm going to do drinking. I'm going to self sabotage because they just didn't spend enough time figuring themselves out.
Yeah, it's all trying to fill a void, right?
There's
And a void
no,
can't be filled with anything external.
that's the worst part. No self love.
Yeah.
Therapy's
Love is so
important.
misunderstood. And also like a topic that's almost awkward. It is awkward, right?
I mean,
The word is awkwardly thrown around and misappropriated. Um, like and too often misconstrued with romance. Romance is an aspect of love. But there's a brotherly love, what you were just describing, which is different. It's not romantic attraction. It's a different, which is why the Greeks had four words for love. Eros being one of them, which is that romantic, passionate, physical love, right? Agape being the brotherly love, which is a different type. It's a different form. It's a different nuance. It's a different dimension. Like a diamond, when you hold it in the light and you turn it, there's so much, right? It refracts the light in so many different ways. One diamond. So one concept in English, in American, we'll just say love, because it's just one thing. We'll just name that rock love. That diamond there, that's love. But the Greeks look at it, is part of my heritage, and they go, one diamond, but look at all the light that refracts through it in different dimension. There's 4 words. So I think that's very important. And then there's the self-love, and that is a very important thing, and something we're going to talk more about on a further episode. Let's pause though on this idea of brotherhood community, because I think that's a great place to just pause and really wrap things up. Because I want to state that, you know, as you just said, cutting out, like, look, if any of you have gardened, you know that if you're gonna go right, if you don't go weed your garden, you're not gonna have anything good. You're just gonna have a bunch of weeds, because what do the weeds do? They take over. It's part of the definition of a weed. They just kind of just take over. They choke out the plants that you want, and all you end up with is an overgrown garden of weeds, and maybe you get a few limp, kind of half-rotten tomatoes or whatever, right? Whatever you're trying to grow isn't going to grow well because you didn't weed the damn garden. Same with your mind, same with your heart, same with your state, and same with your circle. Are you weeding out those who listen? Weeding out does not mean, I hate you, you're a bad person. It just means you do not belong. I think that like I said, morning glories are considered a weed. They're beautiful. I think it's great. I love seeing morning glories grow in the proper place, you know, but they don't belong in my garden. So you don't have to, right? Because sometimes it's like, oh, I don't want to cut people out, because then, like, what? Because we have all these complexes about it of like, oh, that would be mean, or I might be like, I don't, you know, I can't think I'm better than people. Whatever it is, we come up with these stupid justifications that are not real, and so you got to just start challenging your own internal conversation, right? Because too often it just runs without challenge, and it compounds itself, and it's this train that just is heading off a cliff, and you don't ever challenge it, it'll take you off the cliff with it. So challenge your internal dialogue and start to just recognize that, no, if you allow the weeds to grow in your garden, you're not going to have a garden. They don't belong. That's why you weed. Not because it's a judgment of this terrible thing, just it does not belong here. Your friend circle, your circle of relationships is the same thing, because it's been shown so many times. Different people have different quotes around this, but you become the average of the people you spend the most time around. Financially, that's true. Emotionally, right? Intellectual, like the quality. And listen, today, one of the things that AI definitely is showing is that it's not your skills, because your skills can be replaced at speed, but it's your character. Who are you? That determines everything. Because the tools are going to come and go. All the AI servers might blow up. I don't know. The internet could theoretically shut down. We could have an X-class solar flare. We're really in a lot of trouble if we're dependent on things. But dependency is a trait. It's a characteristic. Right? You can develop your skills, and your skills can be replaced. But if you're dependent on your skills, that's a characteristic. That's a trait. Develop your character. And the best way to develop your character is to be around other men of character who will draw out the best in you, right? And so with that, I do reach out to myself and to PJ and see what we've got going on, because we've both got different ways that you can engage with us further if you're serious and committed about your own journey of growth, right? And if it doesn't make sense right now, if you feel like there's some kind of a financial constraint, if a financial constraint is the issue, we'll just reach out anyway, right? Because the first conversation is free. Like, let's be real. The first one's always free. And we can cross that bridge when we come to it. But the main thing is if you're serious about your growth. Because money is never the real thing. It's your actual commitment of time and energy. Money is a reflection of that. And if you're using, honestly, straight up, if you're using money as an excuse to not grow, you'll always be stuck. And at that point, you're a little bitch to money. Right? And look, men, we all have these places where we can't become a little bitch to something, right?
Oh yeah.
And so don't do it. Don't allow money to have the power in your life. Don't allow sex to have the power in your life. Don't allow your addictions to have the power in your life. Transcend them. Money is your servant, used, and it's there to support you in your journey. Okay, so we got that out of the way.
Well said.
It's
So
only
when you
took me
guys
8
gonna
hours.
level up? Hey, I got an IOU for you, Pete. But yeah, like also just join in on the live shows.
Totally.
Money comes and goes. When it's the right time for you guys, reach out again. It's not an issue. But I will say this is not to be used to constantly vent about XYZ if you're not going to put an action step towards it, right? Like, we're trying to help you grow. We're not trying to manifest and fester your negative thoughts onto us and yourself. Come in here with an open mind, guns blazing. Like, this is a place, the arena, to evolve. There's
100%.
other platforms that are free. I have a podcast that is free. I have a Twitter that is also free.
Where
It's
do they find that?
under reality dreamers. And most importantly, though, I thrive with like-minded men. So come hang out with me and Peter. Come see what we're gonna create with this world and this reality. What are you gonna bring to the table? What do you want to grow?
That's it.
Pete, I'm dying. It's like 95 degrees.
We got to wrap. What's the link? Reality Dreamers podcast, Twitter. What's the best link to get in touch with you and learn more about what you got going on? Because you got the community you're building. You ready to announce that? Gonna put you on the spot. I just did.
Damn, you did. Yo, damn, you did.
The
So,
arena is live, my friends.
yeah, no kidding. No kidding. So the podcast is live on Spotify and it's live on Amazon Music.
Uh-oh. Little freeze up. All right. Reality Dreamers. Live where you can find it. Go follow PJ. He's talking about mental health and topics for men, right? Especially men coming of age, going through the journey of self-discovery and awareness, having that moment of awakening, right? And identifying what are the mental health issues that you're dealing with, what's holding you back, what do you do to grow and ultimately become 1% better as a man every day. All right, for myself, putting together a team and circle of high achieving men who recognize that good is the enemy of great, right? And that's really a place of awareness and recognition that we're only tapping into 1% of our true potential. If that's you, if you're there at that place of awareness and awakening, and you know that there's so much more to you, and you're ready for the journey of activation, of stepping into that power, then then we need to talk. Okay. So you can reach either one of us, connect with us, follow us here. We're going to be doing this live weekly on Thursdays. It's 3 p.m. Mountain Time. That's 5 p.m. Eastern Time. If you want to contact me directly, go to unshakable.pro. The first link there on my bio link is going to be an application. That's just really the first step in us having a conversation. It's going to let me get to know a little bit more about you, where you're at, what you're looking for, and we can take it from there. And yeah, so hoping PJ can drop back in for a final farewell. If not, this is my show to wrap. Um, just a big thank you to all of you who watched this, who engaged with us. Esqual, thank you for joining in the comments and giving us food for thought and something to talk about, right? Welcome you all to share that. You can reach out to us, it really just share content, ideas, right? Concepts, topics. Late for me here. not late. Anyway, sorry. My brain gets to a certain point and starts to go off the rails. Of course, you saw that happen during the show. So now we know that, yeah, my brain's always going off the rails. Who am I kidding? And that's the reality. All right. So my brain's going off the rails at all times in 100 different tangents. And it is like a spider web. So that's kind of cool. I've never heard it described that way, but that's pretty fitting. So join us here weekly, 3 p.m. Mountain Time. That's where I'm at for right now. And that's 5 p.m. Eastern for my man PJ there in New York. Give us a shout out, connect with us on social media, and send us questions, send us topics of interest. And listen, this show is for men and a welcome women, right? You can share with us too. What are the topics that you're interested in, concerned about, wondering about? How do you connect more deeply with your man? How do you understand your man, right? Or how do you find a good man? What does that look like? What are the traits that you're going to look for? Or what are the challenges that you're facing? Like, share it all with us. My goal for this show is to start just really on a weekly basis to just be going through what are the submissions from all of you. There he is. All right. I did my best to give him a little direction over to you and tell him what your podcast was about. But if you want, and then just sharing a bit, like we're doing this weekly on Thursdays. So join us, follow in this journey with us, submit your topics, submit your questions. We want this to really be, an audience engaged show where we're really responding to what you all want to hear. And I was also saying, PJ, that, the show is for men about man's topics, but we welcome women to join, to watch, and also send us questions and topics too. You want to understand your man better. You want to know what to look for in a man, etc. It's all welcome. So at some point, we'll probably have guests on here too, and that'll be fun. But for right now, PJ and I are going to be rocking and rolling every Thursday, 3 p.m. Mountain, 5 p.m. Eastern. Join us next week. PJ, last words?
Sorry about that. I'm just stoked, and it's just
Two.
one key takeaway is being grateful, guys. Being grateful for the opportunities that come. Being grateful to exist in this timeline, exist together, to grow together. I'm really excited to be able to have that opportunity to work with Peter. I'm really excited to start engaging with you guys, just to hear about your problems, but more about, all right, let's create solutions. Let's create solutions together.
Yes.
So I'm super stoked. Catch us next week on UNSHAKABLE Live, episode 2, buddy.
Yes. Boom.
But check out Peter's platform. Check out my platform. UNSHAKABLE's Peter's, Reality Dreamers mine, and yeah, let's grow together.
Let's do it. All right, y'all. Thanks for watching. We're gonna end this.